welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, and welcome to Syosset Public Library's official podcast, Turn the Page. I am Megan, one of the children's librarians here at Syosset, and I am thrilled to have on the podcast today author Annie Fox, who's the author of many children's, young adult, and adult books. And I was so happy to read Annie's latest book, LEETA Simtar. It was such a great book, and it's an intergalactic adventure taking place across two different planets. LEETA's journey to find a self-discovery and her family, and it's packed with so many interesting things, and it's got some romance, some interesting friendship connections. So thank you so much for joining us today, Annie, on the podcast.
Thank you, Megan. I'm delighted to be here with you.
Yes, so I delved into this book and I wasn't expecting to be so engaged because you really did such a great job of creating the world of Fiore. Am I saying that right? Fiore?
Fiore.
Fiore. Yes, the planet Fiore that our character LEETA Simtar, who's 71% Furarian.
She's an interspecies hybrid.
Yes.
She knows that she's part Furian.
Yeah.
But she's kind of been deceived about what the other part of her is. And she doesn't know percentages. She just knows, and she's not the only interspecies hybrid on Fiore. There are others, but she's very, very different in a lot of ways. She's 6'6".
Mm-hmm.
And most everybody on the planet is around 5 feet tall.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So she stands out physically, but her behavior is also so out of sync with everyone else. She's very emotional. She's the kind of person who lets you know how she feels. And she's often thought of as unruly and undisciplined. And as a result, she tries to be more like the pureblood Furians, which they call reals, versus the hybrids, which they call brids. But she can't accept herself, and she's not very good at pretending to be somebody else. So she doesn't feel at home on her home planet.
Yeah. And then she goes on this journey and she befriends Sid, who is so interesting of a character. I think Sid is my favorite character that she meets on Earth. Mm-hmm. And Sid, it's interesting with him because his dad is like a UFO conspiracy theorist person that we find out in the book. And what's interesting with Sid is I feel like he's got this interesting relationship because he's such a different person from his father. Like he's such a good friend to LEETA, and he helps her a lot on her adventures on Earth to discover more about herself. And I think he's just my favorite character.
That's sweet. He's a very sweet guy and very creative.
Yeah.
And a good friend to have as your first friend on Earth.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I love when she's on Earth, like just reading through the book, like the kind of like her AI assistant, thing, Aya. Yeah. I love that. I loved Aya because Aya is just so funny. Like you wove like a lot of humor into the story because it is a serious story. She's trying to find out more about herself leaving the planet of Fiore. And then she goes on to Earth, and she just like that AI assistant was just so funny, like how she's trying to navigate everything, and it's giving her like terms of different things that she might not be familiar with, like about everything from potato chips to like onion rings, her favorite food that you find out in the story. So I thought that was a nice touch.
Aya was a lot of fun for me to write, Megan. She's sassy. And she's got a whole lot of attitude, not your robotic, accepting AI like Siri, who's going to just say, yes, right, whatever you want. She pushes back.
Yeah, it's like how you would imagine like AI, like in the future, like being a lot more sophisticated. And she has like an implant device. Am I remembering this correctly?
Yes. LEETA downloaded an outdated Earth database for her to be able to look at the flora and fauna of Earth and be able to identify what the heck these things are, even a bicycle. These are things that do not exist on her planet.
Right, exactly. And you created a whole new language for this. Like, can you tell tell us a little bit more about how that came about?
Well, it's interesting because I'm not really, I mean, sci-fi is not the book, the book genre that I normally gravitate towards. I
Mhm.
read a lot of stuff, but yeah, not usually sci-fi. And so when I was thinking about Lita's story and how she is really not at home on her home planet and she needs to find some place that will be welcoming and accepting, kind of an adopted home, I realized that I needed to put her on a foreign place and bring her as a stranger into a strange land that I knew about, that I could write about. So Act One is on Fiore, and yes, I needed to create some terms. The language they speak, what we hear, is English, but occasionally, there'll be descriptors of the kind of food they eat or the animals that she sees. And in the back of the book, I put a glossary, but I had a lot of fun just making up words. Um, and it kind of put me in a mindset of this is a foreign place. And you probably, maybe you notice that when Lita speaks to the people on her home planet, she's the only one who uses contractions. She kind of speaks in slang. Everyone else is very, very formal. But when she comes to Earth, she is struggling to learn a new language. And she speaks in a very precise, formal way.
Right.
Hello, my name is LEETA Simtar. I am pleased to meet you. And then my challenge was, okay, she's a very fast learner. So she's on Earth for 8 days. How do I change her dialogue so the reader gets the sense that she's becoming more comfortable where she is, and can converse more easily? So that was a challenge.
Yeah, like you definitely like you did that so well. What I really liked about how you created the characters is they were all so memorable in their own way, like how Lita's like, using like, she really adapts to the environment, that she's in and like how she has to be different on her home planet opposed to how she adapts to Earth. And it's like a coming of age journey with that too, of how she's like she finally can like express herself and her emotions. And that's so interesting because on her home planet, she couldn't really do that. And I think that she kind of feels guilty, I think at times expressing her emotions. But I think what's great about like the character of Sid, her friend on Earth, is that like he says that that's fine. Like it's important to express your emotions and different things. And I think that that's a lesson that, we all can learn, reading the story.
Absolutely true. I wrote this for young adults. I know a lot about middle school and high school students. Not only did I actually study adolescent psychology at college, I have a graduate degree in education, and I've been in a lot of schools. I think that some of what Lead is dealing with are things that are exactly where young adolescents are at. That idea of self-acceptance, feeling judged, hiding your true self because it doesn't feel safe, trying to be accepted, and looking for real friends versus the people who pretend to be friends. That popularity thing is not necessarily the road to acceptance or true happiness. And so, yeah, finding your people is integrated into this story as is finding home and found family versus birth family. I think we've all had those experiences where the people that you are born into a family for whatever reason may or may not be fully accepting, or you just feel different from them. And as a result, it's like, Lita always thinks there's something wrong with her. I mean,
Right.
until she leaves and she realizes with Sid's help and other people that there's nothing wrong with her.
Right. No, there isn't. And like that's so interesting that you say about like the found family, and the family that because you find throughout this story, like there's a lot of different things that she discovers about her, different aspects of family and with friendships. And there's everyone's got to have their own flaws and different things. And then you find like where the people that love and care about you, like they really are. So
Yeah. Where are your true friends? Or if your found family is indeed found and not the one you're born into, then embrace that because they will make you feel at home.
yes. Yeah, and that's an important message. And told it in like an interesting way because I haven't really read a story exactly where a character's coming from a different planet to Earth. And like what's interesting, it takes place in the San Francisco like surrounding area when she gets to Earth, like the Manchester. I'm trying to think of like the area where the story, it's near San Francisco area where she,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's in the San Francisco Bay Area.
yeah.
And I did that because there's actually a SETI Center in Berkeley. SETI,
Oh, okay.
SETI stands for the Search for Extraterrestrial
Hmm.
Intelligence. And on the cover of the book, there are radio telescopes because there is that making contact with extraterrestrials is an aspect of the story. And in case anybody wonders, hey, do fiction writers ever do any research? Or is it purely your imagination? Well, a lot of it's your imagination, but I think what you bring to it in terms of reality is important. So I actually went and interviewed one of the SETI scientists in
Oh,
Berkeley
wow.
while I was writing this, and that was fascinating, man. That was so cool.
That's
So
so cool.
yeah, so I was able to incorporate what I learned about their process. And would it be possible to hide contact if a scientist, for example, made contact with an extraterrestrial? They're supposed to report it to the team. Would it be possible to have a clandestine relationship with an alien and not let your team know? And he kind of told me how you could do it.
Wow. That's so wild. Oh my goodness. I'd love to know like the secrets in there, like how that all operates. But you could tell because it's so detailed about the SETI Center. I hope I'm saying that right. Like on
Yeah,
this,
Betty. Mhm.
that like you go into detail about like, how they would possibly contact, extraterrestrials. So that was really cool.
It's something I've always been fascinated with as a kid, growing up on Long Island as I did. Um, I used to look at the stars. I remember saving my babysitting money, and when I was 12, actually bought a small telescope. And on summer nights, I would lie out on my front yard and look up at the stars. And it wasn't, for me, I was always curious about life on other planets, always.
Yeah.
And this book is kind of a culmination of a little bit of intergalactic exploration.
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, like the idea like to make like so on her home planet of
Hooray.
Fure, I keep saying that wrong. Fure, she is really like the only one that has a lot of emotions and everyone is so logical and thinking. So
I
it's like to
know.
come up with that because like how we imagine like extraterrestrials or beings on other planets. Like it was just interesting how you did that and like how there's whole like this classification, how people classify themselves. And like it just was interesting. It was seemed very detailed. Like, did you have any inspiration behind that? Or like what was your like your whole
I've never been to another planet.
yeah.
I am not from another planet, though I've wondered sometimes. Um, I think as a child, I was highly emotional.
Hmm.
And I think my birth family wasn't quite sure what to do with that. And for me, I was fortunate enough in that I love to write. I love to
Hmm.
sing. I was in theater. I was one of the theater kids, also one of the library kids. And so um, feeding my imagination was a way to kind of modify some of my emotions. So I think in some ways LEETA is like me. Of course I'm only 5'2". I'm not 6'6". But this idea of standing out because you are more emotional, more sensitive, things really get to her. She gets really upset about things.
Hmm.
An injured animal, she feels the feels,
Yes.
and nobody else where she is understands it. They're like, no, and what is it? But the veneer for the people on Fure is that they are accepting. They pretend they're not judgmental, but she feels their judgment all the time.
Yes. Yeah. It's like it's so different, like going to Earth, and it's like it's very like it's stark from that first part one to like how we see in the other parts of the book, like how different it is being on Earth. And I think that definitely setting it across two different planets was very interesting because it really makes us see like, oh, wow, that's so different, like here on Earth than what she's experiencing at home and seeing it through her eyes,
Yeah.
you know?
And the first interaction she has, as you mentioned, this alien hunter character makes her feel extremely unwelcome. And
Yeah.
as soon as
Yeah.
she lands there, it's like, whoa, maybe this was totally a mistake. And I mean, there's a reason why I was warned not to come here. But gradually she meets some more welcoming people
Yes.
and decides that the quest that brought her here to find more about who she really is worth whatever obstacles she may encounter. So she's very determined.
Oh,
I really,
she is
I,
very
I
determined.
admire that about her.
And besides Sid, like I really love the character of, is it Lori? I don't know if I'm getting her name right.
Oh, her Lucy.
Lucy, I'm sorry. I knew it was something with an L. Lucy. I
It's
should have
okay. You
remembered
read a
that.
lot of books. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, Lucy. Yeah, I love how like just how free-spirited she is and like she's definitely like very this is the way like my way kind of thing and this is the way I'm thinking and she kind of grew up from like a kind of privileged life so it's like interesting to see, Lita had a very different experience and she's not used to somebody being kind of like demanding like this, but I think that she also has a lot of goes to on have a lot of care for Lita too. So it's interesting to see her character development through the story.
Yeah, she's not a warm and fuzzy person, and she's
No.
very suspicious, and yet you see the two girls coming together, and I like that. It felt real. I mean,
Oh
because
yeah.
I think a lot of people who are prickly on the outside, it's a defense.
Yes.
It's because they're not really sure of themselves or they're afraid, and so they come off, charging into every situation, um, kind of like I'll get you before you get me. And when Lucy realizes that Lita doesn't really want to get her, that Lucy is a person that maybe could use some acceptance and welcoming too, then the two girls are kind of become a team with Sid. And I really enjoyed
Yeah.
playing off of those three
Yeah.
characters.
I love those three characters. Like I love to see them like in another story. Like I know we get more information about them like later on, like kind of
Uh-huh.
like different things, but yeah, it's just so I love the three of them together like interacting and some of those moments were just really funny. Like I love how you really like you put the fast food scenes in because I thought it was like so real. It's like kids, yeah, they love, kids enjoy fast food as like a treat. Like,
And
that's
they're
something that
on a
they can
road
relate.
trip. They're on a road trip
Yeah.
and they're hungry a lot.
Yeah. And I love that you said like Lita's always hungry, like she enjoys eating. I love that part, like that added part of her character.
Yeah.
And I love that her favorite food is like onion rings.
Yeah,
And
she
she
likes
loves
onion rings
bananas too.
and peppermint patties. She
And
likes
peppermint
chocolate and
patties.
mint.
Yeah, she likes very yeah, like sweet
Sweet
type
and
thing.
salty,
Yeah, sweet and
crunchy.
salty.
Yeah, because if you remember the food on Fury is not high caliber.
Oh no. Yeah, the fury, like the food, yeah, the way the food is described, I'm like, now I can see like why she really enjoyed all this like
Like, oh my
greasy, like
God,
sweet.
this is the most wonderful thing I've ever tasted.
Yeah.
It's onion ring.
Yeah, and I'm wondering like on Fury, like that would maybe be something like almost like genetically modified a lot of that kind of food, like how they're even processing it, like how does
Yeah, I think because water is such a scarce
right.
commodity there, they gather seeds from other planets, and the both Lita and her best friend Zerti, who you haven't mentioned
Yeah,
yet,
I haven't mentioned Zerdy yet. Yeah.
um, they're botanists, and so they work in the botany dome in the lab, and their job is to propagate these seeds, which become the food for the planet. And water is so precious. But I don't know. They've gotten into creating sauces or fancy desserts or anything. It's all pretty, subsistence level food. I mean, they're very intelligent, high tech culture and civilization, but food is not the thing that they focused on.
Yeah, I love the botany terms. It was interesting, like those botany in the Fury link that you created, like that are in the glossary. It was like really
Yeah.
interesting to read about that and like the different plants and things you
Oh,
created.
I'm glad. I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. Sounds like
Yeah.
you appreciate it on a lot of different levels,
Yeah,
Megan.
like I read a lot into the book. Like I read it like through one and then read it through for more details, the second time through. And yeah, her best friend, I didn't mention her, but she's really significant, like not only in the beginning part of the story, like you really see her as like a good support,
Yeah.
to Lita. She's very logical. And I think for her to try to understand sometimes Lita's emotions, it's tough for her, but I feel like she's the kind of friend that even though they have differences, like she helps keep her like almost like I want to say in check, like she's there for her. It's like a very like sisterly kind of relationship. Like even though they're very different, like she's a big support to her. And
Yeah, I think this is just one of the best kind of friends you can have.
yeah, oh yeah.
Kind of temper you a little bit and
Yes, she challenges her too, which I like, she's like, you go on this journey, like, I'm there to support you. And she really
yeah,
supports. Without her, she would, she'd be kind of lost like on the journey. She needed
yeah, she's
background.
alone. She feels that very strongly before she meets up with her human friends. But I kept Zerti in the story, checking in.
Mhm.
We give her a very important task,
Yes, she's got a really important task.
really important task, and she comes through. She's
Yeah,
very
she's the kind of
reliable.
friend like when you're going through something difficult, she's always going to be there. Like throughout the story, like she's not as present in the other parts as she is in the first part, but she's always
Right,
there, for Lita. And she definitely there's a few times where Lita has to contact her for some important
right.
information and different things. So
And it's hard for Zerti because she's kind of a by the rules kind of girl.
yes. Mm-hmm.
And Lita is more of a renegade. I mean,
Yes.
she has, really jumped ship. She's
Yes.
taken an escape pod and she has taken off and she's not following the rules, but she needs Zerti's help. And so Zerti's like,
Yeah.
"You want me to lie?
Yeah, I
Um,
know. It's like
this
that
is
was
like
the best.
not part of."
That was one of my favorite parts though, is when she like goes all real rebel as like, you go girl, like she takes the escape pod and like her friend comes through for her. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like I'd love to see that visually, like in like a film or something, like her taking the escape pod and like
Oh,
traveling.
I would love to see that as well. And yeah, we created the cover of the book so that it would look like a graphic novel. And the lower half of the book is, I know we're only recording this, so my holding up a book is not going to help. But I will describe it to you. The lower half of the book is Lita on Fure. And you can see it's rocky, it's barren. The people are living inside of a dome, and you can see them.
Mhm.
And the story starts at the graduation, where these 160 or so graduates are coming of age.
Mhm.
But the center panel is Lita on her escape pod, moving towards Earth, and the
Right.
top half of the novel shows where she lands. And I purposely um, worked with our cover artists to design it with the feel of a graphic novel, is because, as you remember, Sid is
Mhm.
an aspiring graphic
Yes, he
novelist.
is. Yes.
And I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if on some level, you know, this is Sid um, documenting Lita's journey.
Yes.
And in the follow-up, we find out more about what's happened in the years since the book ended.
Yes.
But so I think that art and storytelling go hand in hand in this book.
Hmm.
Um, there are clues that come from a painting that she gets at
Hmm.
a Goodwill store. And I don't know, would you call this a mystery? I don't really know how to categorize it. There are clues, and there's definitely something she's trying
Yeah,
to unpuzzle.
it's a bunch of different things. It's like a mystery, science fiction, also action adventure. There's a lot of like action that happens too. So a lot of
Yeah,
different genres, if you like. And it's very like emotionally it's very like there's a lot of emotion too. Like even when you mention like the art, like we find like there's something like with the art that there's a big emotional connection that Lita
Yeah, the
has with Bart
backstory
without
and
spoiling anything.
without spoiling it, you and I could
Yeah,
talk offline, but yeah, her connection to Earth is very deep, and she never
yeah.
knew about it. She finds out about it kind of by poking around in
Hmm.
a database that is off limits. And when she gets that spark of information, she says, maybe this will explain why I am the way I am. And she goes full on into the unknown and putting together, the clues as you can. And she only has 8 days.
I know it's only 8 and that you put a time limit on it too makes it seem like it's something, we gotta know what happens next. Like,
And
yeah.
she wants to know. She gets very impatient. That's part of her impulsivity. It's like when they're on the road trip, she's how much longer? How much farther do we have to? She's also she gets impatient with how slow cars are.
Yes, yeah.
She traveled
Oh, yeah.
40 light
Yeah,
years
I remember that part where she's like complaining about the car. She's like, they're traveling so slow.
so
Yeah,
slowly, and it's manually operated. She was like scared.
yeah.
And how can you be driving and talking and listening to the radio and sipping from a cup and petting your dog, and you're also driving while all these other vehicles are so close?
Yeah.
It's like,
I like the part too where like the kid notices like her cell phone is like so much more advanced and then she has to like,
uh-huh,
hide it. That was
uh-huh.
cool, too. It's just like it just shows you like how much more advanced like the technology was. It was just interesting, like that
Yeah.
they're
The
way more advanced. We have to think about that.
Yeah, the technology is advanced, but Lita is like a child.
Yes,
She she is not advanced in that way. She's not sophisticated. She's very
right.
naive because,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah, she's a
she,
teenager too. She's 17 and she's extraterrestrial and
and this is a whole new
yeah.
place.
Yeah, it's a whole new place for
And
her,
she's
right?
alone. And
Yeah.
she does really well.
Yeah, she is alone. That's the thing is like she has her best friend, but really she knows not like anything about her family, like anything like that. So it's really a whole journey of a lot of different things for her. So
Yeah, yeah.
friendships and yeah.
Friendship, and then she connects with some people she is related to.
Yes, she
But-
does. Yeah.
And I loved writing that part as well.
Yes.
Um,
I remember there's a lot of interesting scenes with that. It's so hard to like talk about that without spoiling
I
anything,
know.
That's why because it's like any detail gives because it is very detailed. So I feel like any detail I'm gonna like
Yeah, they're like, oops, no, I shouldn't have said that. That's a spoiler. Okay.
yeah, if you can give any advice for like, how, someone might go about like writing their own novel, maybe like writing a young adult novel, like what that process is like opposed to
Yeah.
like other age groups. What was that like? Yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously I'm not a teenager anymore, but I certainly was one. And I was a very Lita Simtar-like teenager. This is actually my second YA novel. The first one came out in February of last year. I would recommend it. It's called The Little Things That Kill, and it is a
Oh, nice.
paranormal mystery.
Ooh, very interesting.
And this is essentially about a girl who on page one finds out she's dead and in an afterlife realm, and there she has no memory of what happened to her on her last day. So in some ways, she is also piecing together puzzle pieces, and she has a time limit. There's going to be an evaluation, which is like a big exam, where she has to take responsibility for the choices that she made that led her up to this point. And because she has no memory of what led her up to this point, she's got to go on a fact-finding mission, and that leads her to Earth, and her first stop is her own funeral.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's really deep. Oh my goodness.
it's deep. It has three first-person narrators.
Ooh, that's interesting.
The dead girl and two of her friends that she left behind, because she has to figure out a way to communicate with them. As I said, she's very faulty in her memory now, and she's hoping that the people she left behind might be able to fill in some of the blanks. Anyway, to answer your question about being a writer, I think you need to read stuff that's really good, and your library, I'm sure, is just packed with it. And even you can learn from reading books that are really not great. super popular but not well written.
Mhm.
It's the same thing when you watch movies. It's like what makes a good story. Sometimes you've got a good story, but it's not told very well, or the pacing is off, or it just doesn't connect with you on some level. It feels like the character's dialogue feels fake.
Mhm.
You can learn from that as an aspiring writer. But I would say to any person who is thinking, gosh, I would love to be a writer, aside from reading good and bad stuff, start writing about your life in a private way, like in a journal, just so that you get comfortable writing down your thoughts and your observations. A lot of writing fiction is being a good observer of how people really are in the world. What happens to their faces when they're angry or embarrassed? Not necessarily like, oh, she blushed or she turned away, but little things that people do, gestures with their fingers, or they're shifting their weight from one foot to another because they're feeling awkward. These really bring writing to life rather than she said, he said, they did. It's like, yeah. So if you admire good writing, I think that's in some ways very inspirational. But the only way to be a writer is to write. And you don't have to start with fiction. Like I said, you can use a journal. What happened to me today? What did I observe? What did I feel? What do I think other people were feeling? What did people
Mhm.
say to me? How did they look when they were saying it? Um, if you enjoy doing that, there might be a writer in you. My parents gave me a diary when I was in the fourth grade, and it was just a book filled with blank pages. And I started writing, and I started enjoying the process. I liked reading my own words out loud to myself and pretending someone else had written them. And I thought, oh, it gave me when I started writing fiction, it's like you're controlling a world, you're creating a world, but unlike writing in a journal, it's meant for an audience. You're telling a story and you want other people to be drawn in. So that's why it's so fun to talk to you, Megan, because you were drawn in.
Yes, I really was. Like I was really drawn into the story and I cared about the characters. And for me, that is the most important. If I can care about the characters and I find the characters really interesting. And I feel
Yes.
like so many of the characters I can't even go into detail about a lot of them because they're all important to the story and they're like spoiler. A lot of them would give spoilers away. But some of like you did mention like some of the family members, like people in her family that she encounters, like
Mhm.
she does encounter.
There's an older gentleman.
Yes. Yes, and I love the interactions that she has with it. Does feel genuine. It does feel like, if you're encountering, someone for the first time or,
Mhm.
it feels like a genuine interaction, without going into spoilers. Like I really thought that the characters were very genuine. I feel like if you can prove that to your audience, like that's, you forget that you're reading. It doesn't matter what you're reading about. You could read about
Exactly.
extraterrestrial characters.
I know. It's so
Yeah.
you find the connection. It
Right.
doesn't matter who it is. And that's the magic. That's the magic of writing. It's the magic of writing for me as the writer. It's the magic of writing for you as the reader. It's like you forget where you are, you're in this world. And when you think about it, it's it's pretty remarkable. You're looking at symbols on a page
Mhm.
or
Like
on a
a paper.
screen,
Yeah.
and everything else goes away.
Right.
Magic.
Yeah,
It's
it is magic. Yeah. I really felt like I was in the story, like how part of the title is an unauthorized
biography.
biography. Right. You really feel, wow, yeah, like I am reading, like almost this could be about someone like an extraterrestrial person that came to Earth. And you suspend disbelief for a moment. You're like,
If I could read just the opening, it's kind of the author's note.
sure.
Okay, let me read that. Author's note. I met LEETA Simtar 6 months after she landed on Earth. We spent a lot of time traveling together. I consider her a close friend, maybe more. I hope she feels the same about me. As for what happened before she arrived, I only know what she described of her home planet and its people. Like everything LEETA told me, I believe most of it. The parts I'm not sure about, I included here as well. I had to. Otherwise, this story would have been filled with holes, and no one likes that. If it turns out this version of LEETA Simtar's story is not 100% accurate, forgive me. It still deserves to be told. And it's not like you haven't been warned. This is the unauthorized biography.
Yeah, that's so great. It
So
really
it's
is
it's,
great
it's like
open.
a joke on top of a joke.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, there was so much humor. That's why I was just surprised because I thought at first things were going to be really, really serious the entire story. But like I mentioned about her personal assistant, like her friends on Earth, like everyone's got like their own sense of humor and her play every time she talks to Sid, like her play off of him, a lot of their conversations have like a humor behind them or like kind of like a little bit of sarcasm. Like I really like that.
It's I'm funny. I enjoy humor. I look for jokes in life, and it's fun to write lines that make me laugh. If it makes me laugh, if I get the thought, what is she going to say in response to Sid? And I get an idea and it makes me laugh. I say, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoyed this story and yeah, really like you said is like I felt a connection to it. So it was
Good. That's the
it's
magic
great
word.
yeah, it was a great experience reading it and I'm sure others are going to love it too, like of all ages, because it's a story you can connect to if you're a young adult, you know, if you're an adult for those ages and up, you know, there's on different levels you can connect to it. I think what, you know, a teen might find out of it, you know, might be different than what an adult is looking, you know, from their perspective. So I think that's really cool. You can read it.
Yeah, I think that the title that I chose, Lita Simtar, A Life on Two Planets. I think a lot of us are, there's like our life as children, and then our life as we move towards adulthood. There can be shifts as we grow, interests that we didn't know we had, things that we pursue, friendships, relationships, different paths that we take. And so I think on some ways maybe we're not literally living on two planets like Lita Simtar is, but I think our lives certainly have different chapters. And that duality is something that I think young readers can definitely relate to because they are moving into young adulthood.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great way of putting it. Like I didn't even put that together at first, but that's like really, that's really deep. And like, I definitely see that. Like, and you chose to put it in different parts like that too, that it's like her different parts of like even finding herself too and her journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I care a lot about Lita, and I wanted to do her story justice. I wanted to also make it as relatable as possible, that she wasn't just this like freakish ET character, that she has, in some ways, she's entirely human.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Like if you weren't like physically, if you didn't see like, you know, some of the differences, she's super tall and she's got like these differences, like you would think that she's like any other teenager, you know, in the way that she expresses herself
Yeah.
and that's what it is. That's when you know it's a good character. And did you have any other questions for me that were something we didn't discuss that you wanted to bring up about the story?
Hmm. What did you think about the afterword, where I kind of extend the story a year after it ends to kind of just, without giving spoilers, obviously, where you kind of catch up with the characters a year later? Did you think that was helpful? Should I have just ended it where I ended it and not bothered with that? What did you think?
I like that you added that because I was wondering about some of the characters, and I think in a lot of ways, like the story kind of closed, like unless you were to put the characters in a different story. But I like knowing some of that information. I
And
found it helpful. Yeah, because then I would have been wondering
what happened?
certain things. Yeah,
I
because
guess at the end I was wondering. So I thought, okay, I'll do this. I'll make up something and at least have the storyline extend a little longer.
yeah, I always like afterwards and epilogues, though, because I always like to have extra information.
Yeah, I do too. I like to do that. And I don't really like cliffhangers.
No, yeah,
Especially if you have to wait 2 years for the next book to come out. And it's like, but for me, people have asked me, and maybe you're wondering because you did mention, I'd like to read more about
yeah, the
Lita.
character, yeah,
People have asked me, are you planning a sequel? And the answer is no, I'm not planning a sequel. You see, the first book, The Little Things That Kill, it's paranormal mystery, has nothing to do with Lita
right,
Simtar. It ends and it ends. And
right.
Lita Simtar is a completely different story and a different creative challenge for me as a writer. I'm working on a third novel now, which has nothing to do with either of the two. And it's just kind of the way I am. And
Yeah.
there are certain people we know that series are
Right,
super
important.
popular. I mean, you're a librarian, you know that,
And young adult books have this formula where most of them are series, but I appreciate standalone books because I feel like you can get everything is kind of like packed into the book, but everything is so fleshed out more. Like sometimes when there's a
yeah,
series, characters aren't as fleshed out or they're not as dynamic, because like
yeah.
this is like you get the full story. It's like if you're watching a movie, like you get everything in the one story and it's like more satisfying sometimes.
I find that too, Megan.
Yeah.
I get frustrated because it almost seems like if a first book was very successful or the book contract that started out is like, okay, this is going to be a 4 book series. And so don't give too much, just
You're
leave
right.
them wanting more so
Yeah.
they'll buy the next book and the next book. That seems like a marketing
Yeah,
thing
it's
rather
definitely
than
about that. Yeah.
what serves the story. And um, I'll tell you, these books are independently published. And so what I love about being an indie author is that I get to control whether or not I want to write another Lita Simtar book or not. And right now, I'll never say never, but right now I'm writing something different. And I wanted to make it a standalone book because, it's a story. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a little bit of an afterword. But like I said, I'm off to a different creative challenge, different story, different
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah, well, there's so much just from the story alone that like you makes you want to read again. Like I would really love to read this again. Like, and I don't say that about a lot of books. Like it's that kind of book, like you want to go back now and like, what did
Are
I
you
miss? Like
are you into audiobooks or did I send you an audiobook?
I didn't have the audio for this.
Would you like one?
Sure, yeah, that would be really cool.
Okay, I'll tell you this because I think audiobooks are, well, the narrator that did the Lita Simtar book, her name is Maria Marquis, and she's a wonder. She is a stage actor, and there are like 35 different characters in Lita.
Yes, there's
She's the only one who's narrating, but you would swear there is a cast of
Oh,
thousands.
that's great. I love books like that. I love
She's
when
amazing.
oh, I love that. Those are the most enjoyable, like when the actor puts on their own like interpretation of all the characters, like when they're
Okay,
reading, that's
it's
so good.
so interesting to me because I think all of us as human beings, we love to be told stories, and
Right.
we're reading them, or watching them on a screen in a movie, um, or we're listening to an audiobook. And obviously, I wrote every word of this, so you'd think, okay,
Mhm.
Annie's going to listen to the audiobook. It's not going to be much of a big deal. She had me crying and laughing as if someone else was telling me a story. She's that good.
Oh, that'd be so exciting to listen to
Okay,
that. Like,
okay, so yeah, I'm sending you an
oh,
audio.
thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I totally like this journey. Like I feel like you have to take a couple of times with this book because there's so much packed in. Like and it was explained all well where it's like easy to understand, even though there's so many characters and different things going on, which I really appreciated.
Yeah,
Because sometimes it
some
can,
books it's hard. Sometimes I
yeah,
actually take a piece of paper and write
yeah,
down.
like you can be, it like gets meandering a little bit, but everything was like significant and important. It wasn't like a lot of like extra information that wasn't necessary to the story or like to the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's another tip for young writers too. It's
Yeah.
like, what is your story about? And hey, when you write a first draft, second draft, third draft, write as much as you want. Write along the edges. Go out in the field with your story. But when you're really getting serious about editing, it's really important to read it out loud and notice when something doesn't serve the story anymore.
Right.
It's like, well, that was a memory I had about going to a beach with my family. But does this really serve the story I'm actually telling? No. So I would call this maybe an unused gem, and I put it in a file on my laptop, my desktop, and just say maybe some other time I'll need a story about going to the beach with my family. But right now, this story is staying on track.
Right. Now, it's very important because you want readers to focus in on the details in the story, because you don't want your mind to wander and then you can't remember details about the story. That's like the worst thing, and then you have to reread parts.
Have you ever read a book and you say, where is this
Yes,
going?
many times. Many
Yeah,
times with
like,
fantasy and science fiction books, just because it could be a lot.
yeah, they go into the world building,
Yes.
the history, and it's like, I usually don't have a lot of patience for that, so I will skip a bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
hoping I didn't turn a page on something that was important, but it just feels like this is too dense and it's not moving the
Yeah.
story forward.
There's like an equilibrium between the two. Like there's one thing to world build and have specific terms and different things for things like that are exclusive to that world, but in another instance, like you can't lose your audience too much.
Absolutely true. That's the difference between writing a journal and writing a story for public consumption.
Right.
You have an audience, and if you don't take the point of view of the audience, then you might as well just be writing a journal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and
what happens.
it does happen, but this was like really entertaining. I got so much out of it, and I really enjoyed speaking with you today. Like I thought we
Thank
delved
you.
into
This
a
has been
lot
fun.
about the book for people to listen to. And the name of the book again is LEETA SIMTAR, A Life on Two Planets, the Unauthorized Biography by Annie Fox. And you can get it now. It's out.
Oh, yes, it came out last
It
Tuesday,
came out last week.
March
Yes.
11th.
Yeah, so
Lita was born. And I don't know if you know anything about astrology, but this is the time of year for Pisces.
yes, I'm a Pisces. My birthday's 2 days before Lita's.
Okay, so a Pisces is two fish swimming in opposite directions at the same time. Okay, and that's perfect for Lita because her life is on two planets and she's often going in two directions at the same time.
Right. Yeah, that describes Pisces a lot. Yeah, it was such a pleasure speaking with you today, Annie, and maybe we'll speak again on the podcast someday.
Thank you. Likewise.
We're going to close this chapter on Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.